They are just children, but they are the prize in a fierce competition.
The mullah said, go to Afghanistan for a suicide attack.
They are poor, vulnerable, and ripe for recruitment.
These kids are fueling the insurgency.
Caught in the crossfire of war, they can become America's friends or its enemies. I'm Christiane Amanpour in Afghanistan, where the US is ramping up its war against the Taliban. But there's another war the US can't afford to lose. President Obama says America cannot have yet another generation of Muslims who see it as the enemy.
To the Muslim world, we seek a new way forward.
So come with us where the battle for young Muslim hearts and minds is the most intense. In the mountains of Afghanistan, a young boy is cast out, and this is how the battle begins.
My stepmother was beating me a lot, and then she forced me to leave the house.
Nassim was just 10 years old when he fled the beatings and the abuse at home.
You're just a little boy. It must have been so hard.
Yes, it was very difficult. I was spending my days and nights here and there.
For months, Nassim wandered from village to village in search of food and shelter. He became a virtual slave to the townspeople.
I collected firewood from the mountains or building materials for their homes.
Did you feel sad?
Very sad. I shouldn't be in this condition.
But things changed for him when he arrived in the town of Chakcharan and met Yassine Farid, who works for an American aid group called PARSA.
He introduced me to the orphanage.
Here, 150 boys sleep two to a bunk. They wake up to face each day trying their best to bring some semblance of order to their lives amid the desperation that is Afghanistan.
Do you think that you're cracking the back of this beast?
In the sense of...
My guide inside this world is Marnie Gustafson, an American who grew up in Afghanistan.
We've given permission to go on in.
Okay.
Marnie, who runs PARSA, has been rebuilding broken shelters in this broken country, shattered by 30 years of war and hobbled by a government that's financially strapped.
They were going to shut down this orphanage and send the children back out into the villages.
Really?
Or into the streets or into the madrasas. They were going to do that in November because they ran out of money.
But now, Marnie has given these children at least a roof over their heads and a chance to choose a life that keeps them off the streets and away from the extremists.
There's about, what, they told me about 14, 15 people to a room. And they get, for breakfast, they get bread and some tea.
Before, there was nothing to eat but watery gruel and no glass in the windows.
There are places, many parts of the world where conditions are equally poor, equally run down. Why, though, do you think it's so important here to try to rescue these kids?
I have it connected with if Afghanistan is stabilized, my country will be protected. I have that connection.
You do?
Absolutely, without a question. This country needs to be stabilized for our safety.
That's why Marnie struggles one family at a time. She took me to a desperately poor neighborhood on the outskirts of town to meet Nassim's mother. She was also kicked out of the house when Nassim's father, an opium farmer, took a second wife.
Tell me why you can't have your kids live with you.
His father doesn't let me keep them. When he forced me out of his house, then he became like a wolf and my sons had to run away to 2 different places.
Nassim's older brother, Al-Adad, may be in even more danger.
He's 15 to 16 years old. He has a small beard because Talibs don't shave their beard.
The only thing Mani and her staff learned when they managed to call Nassim's brother is that he's studying in a remote, unsanctioned madrasa where the Taliban is active, and he now calls himself Mullah Al-Adad. She fears that along with food and shelter, Nassim's brother is being fed a steady diet of fundamentalism.
Have you tried to get Nassim's brother out?
No, it would be very dangerous for me to attempt to.
And do you think this is prevalent, that there are kids all over this country who, for lack of a helping hand, for lack of something to eat, are driven into these madrasas?
Absolutely. I don't think it was religiously motivated. I think it was motivated by poverty.
Poverty that hits you in the face at every turn.
This is the food that they've brought back. Animals wouldn't even eat this. This is dinner, you guys. It's garbage.
This extreme poverty threatens Afghanistan's future because it denies the children a future. Children like Nassim, who can often be found on the streets begging to help feed his mother. Mani wants to keep him in school, so she's working on a long-term rescue plan. A cow for his mother so that she can sell the milk and Nassim can stay in school.
The main thing is that if we help her with the cow, can she then promise to make sure Nassim goes to school?
But she says no. Her ex-husband's family would steal the cow and eat it.
Is the 2 boys' struggle, one in the madrasa, the other in the orphanage or begging on the street, is that something that you think epitomizes what we're going through here in Afghanistan?
I really do. I really think it does. I can only speculate, but it is certain madrasas, particularly in the southern regions, they're recruiting them for the insurgency. These children will go into the insurgency in some way or another.
When we come back, one of those children recruited for a suicide attack. You will find my body in little pieces, sings one young boy in this Taliban propaganda video. It's targeting children, celebrating suicide. The Taliban recruits its young martyrs from madrasas on the Pakistan-Afghan border. Shakirullah was one of them.
My dad was teaching me a couple of pages of the Quran. Then he couldn't do it, and he sent me to a madrasa.
His father sent him to a madrasa when he was just 10 years old for a free education. But they didn't realize what else lay in store for him.
I was studying in the madrasa when I finished reciting the Quran. A mullah told me I should go to commit a suicide attack. When I said no, I am not going, he forced me.
When he was 14, Shakirullah was smuggled into Afghanistan through an underground network by people he had never met to a destination he didn't know.
I still don't know what type of suicide attack they had planned for me. I still don't know whether God says it was good or bad.
The Afghan police arrested him before he could complete his mission. And now, sitting in an Afghan jail, he wonders if he'll ever see his family again.
I miss my mom and dad.
It is a very vulnerable group of people, mind you.
There is a huge stake for me.
Azhar Hussain is a Pakistani American whose mission takes him from home in Washington, D.C. to madrasas in the dangerous frontier between Afghanistan and Pakistan.
They don't allow students to read newspapers. They don't allow them to watch television. They don't allow them to listen to the radio. So everything else is a third, fourth hand, and everything else that they hear is from their teachers.
Many madrasas teach a version of Islam that's locked in the past. Students are rarely taught math or science. Some students had never even heard of Barack Obama, but they have been taught that America is the enemy.
Is the new president a friend of Pakistan or an enemy?
Enemy.
Azhar is on the forefront of the battle to modernize Pakistan's madrasas. He conducts secret workshops that offer the mullahs a more secular curriculum, and for those who sign up, a chance to upgrade their image from extremist to moderate by teaching them a more tolerant form of Islam.
We do go into some of those verses of Quran about jihad, and if you take a part of the verse, of course, it is very clear that what it says, but if you take the full verse, it does changes the meaning.
He gave our cameras exclusive access to one of his closed-door sessions with madrasa elders like Mullah Fazlur Rahman.
This air of hatred has been created by America.
He used to emphasize quite a bit to young students that they are under threat. So a very big part of his teaching was developing an identity in these young youth as fighters.
And now he teaches them what?
He says you should never fight. That should not be an option in your head as far as an Islamic leader.
A lot has changed. The limited thinking that we had has expanded and stretched.
The latest polls show the people of Pakistan have turned against the militant extremists and overwhelmingly support the government's full-scale war against the Taliban. Azhar says the demand for his workshops is now so high that he's received requests from 5,000 madrasas in Pakistan. But the local Taliban don't like what he's doing.
Have you had threats?
Yes, many. And our partners get threats all the time. If you go through these programs, then we'll harm you or kill you.
In this battle for young hearts and minds, Azhar faces another hurdle. The US has targeted Al-Qaeda and the Taliban with unmanned drone attacks, but that's also killing innocent civilians.
I was talking to a madrasa leader in Fatah who said, actually your project was doing well, and we had a very hard time recruiting people to fight Americans. And after the drone attack, we have literally hundreds of fighters now.
Although most madrasas don't themselves provide military training, their students are easy targets for the recruiters, and Azhar has seen them in action.
These insurgents come out in a prayer area, the students stand up and start screaming with excitement. It is just so organic when a teenage student is looking up to an insurgent. He wants to be like one.
Like this young Afghan militant who studied in a madrasa and now calls himself Mullah Abdullah.
I became a Taliban after the infidels occupied our country. When your country is occupied by force, jihad is an obligation.
I think in some ways we have forfeited the terrain to the Al-Qaedas of the world, who are messaging to those young people in sharp and direct ways.
Ibu Patel, a Muslim who grew up in America feeling like an outsider, understands the path to extremism. He's now a White House advisor on Muslim youth.
It's not a question of them being ideologically attracted to the message of extremism. It's simply a question of that's where the jobs are, that's where the school is, that's where the free lunch program is. I think that one of the central issues of the 21st century is that we will rise or fall on them rising or falling.
Shakirullah is one who has fallen. His madrasa education landed him behind bars, where he's now facing at least 5 years for his attempted suicide bombing. Up next, I track down one of America's least likely but most successful counterinsurgents. We're on a dangerous back road in Afghanistan, heading towards Taliban country to meet one of America's most successful fighters against extremism.
Hello. How are you?
Greg Mortenson is famously hard to track down. He's surrounded by armed men, but that's not how he fights his battles.
An old village chief once told me, if you really want to do something here, you need 3 cups of tea.
3 Cups of Tea is the title of Greg's best-selling book, based on his real-life adventures in Pakistan and here in Afghanistan.
First cup, you're a stranger. Second cup, a friend. And third cup, you become family. And for a family, you're prepared to do anything, even die.
Greg's own brush with death gave him a lifelong mission. 15 years ago, this American from Montana attempted to scale the world's second highest peak, Pakistan's treacherous K2. But he failed, stumbling down the mountain, starving, sick and exhausted. He was nursed back to health in a remote village in the foothills.
You saw 84 children sitting in the dirt during their school lessons. Most of them were riding with sticks in the sand. And it was that a very rash moment they asked for help to build a school.
And did you?
I built a school and man 78 more and still doing it today.
Thank you.
Bob and Jan are old friends.
Working with local villagers, Greg's Central Asia Institute now educates 30,000 students, mostly girls, in places where outsiders dare not venture. Places like Lalanda village, last stop on today's very rough journey.
What's going on? Can't be blocked, is it? Police are all out, look.
Once we get there, Greg finds good friends waiting for him. Like Fazl Ahmed. Before visiting the school, they'll pray together at his son's grave.
He's the brightest student in the school. He's 11. He was herding goats after school. He stepped on this old Soviet mine here that blasted him off. He died about 10 hours later from shock.
When Fazl got over the shock of losing his son, he decided to do two things: dedicate his life to removing Afghanistan's landmines and making sure that his daughters got the education his son never did.
I want all of them to be educated and become whatever they want to be. Doctors, engineers, or teachers. If they have education, they can do it. But without it, they can't do a thing.
His 13-year-old daughter Saida studies in this homeschool that Greg organized because the Taliban often target girls' public schools.
Saida, do you like learning? Are you glad you're being educated?
Yes, I'm happy to learn so I can have a good future.
What do you want to be?
A doctor.
Do you think girls can be future leaders of Afghanistan? Can you be a leader?
If you're educated, of course.
Why is it so important to educate girls beyond the obvious equality?
When I see girls learning how to read and write, they often teach their mother how to read and write.
Not only does this improve the lives of their families and communities, but Greg has also found that educated women can be a firewall against extremism.
When someone goes on jihad, they first should get permission and blessings from their mother. And if they don't, it's very shameful or disgraceful. And I saw that happen after 9/11. They're primarily targeting illiterate, impoverished society because many educated women were refusing to allow their sons to join the Taliban.
The Taliban have targeted schools. In the last 2 years, 640 have been closed. They tried to do it right here in Lalanda.
About a dozen Taliban came in at night. There was some shots fired, and the next they said, if anybody comes to school, we're going to kill you. But the community basically got the Taliban out of here.
Greg believes the villagers are willing to fight for their schools because they provide the land and the labor.
The guards here have orders from the commandant that if anybody harms any student or shoots or anything, just kill them. Don't ask questions.
Really, Commandant? It's a shoot-to-kill order?
Yes, absolutely. 100%.
Assalamu alaikum.
Today, they give Greg a hero's welcome.
Mr. Greg, welcome again after a long time. Welcome.
And together they celebrate the Feast of Nowruz, the Afghan New Year.
Should I sit down? Is that appropriate?
Oh, sure.
I'll sit down here?
Yeah, you can sit there.
Is that funny? Is that funny?
Funny because I was the only woman sitting on the ground with all these men. But despite all the smiles, Greg and the village elders share a serious mission: winning the battle for the next generation.
You used to be U.S. military.
I'm a veteran, yes.
Does your sort of civilian effort, how does it contribute to counterinsurgency, or does it?
I talk to any of the commanders here. They'll say that what we need, we don't need guns, we don't need bombs, but what we need is education. Before the school was here, about 60 to 70% of the boys did go to the extremist madrasa here. Now that's pretty much non-existent.
Guys, what does Dr. Greg mean to you? What has he done for you?
Now we will be educated, and our future will be good.
And what do the teachers think? Do you think because these kids are now in a proper school, will they be friends of America in the future?
Absolutely. All these kids are all studying in this school. Otherwise, they'd be studying in that madrasa.
It's one more victory in Greg Mortenson's 15-year battle to give these children a future.
Okay, this stuff is for the teachers.
Next,
It's for everybody.
American soldiers trying to fight a war Greg's way, with books, not bombs. Aboard a Black Hawk helicopter, we're traveling with the US Army to eastern Afghanistan, towards the Pakistan border, where the war against the Taliban is raging. But today, we're going to see a different kind of battle.
Obviously, because of the danger, the roadside bombs, the suicide bombers, protection is very heavy. All of this, however, when it comes to winning hearts and minds, puts a lot of distance between the soldiers and the people.
You could ride in my vehicle, but I wouldn't recommend that.
Lieutenant Colonel Steve Kuboski is the unit commander.
What's the security threat as we head out?
There's a lot of folks out there that don't like us, and they'll kill any Americans they can find.
But these soldiers aren't fighting the Taliban with bullets and bombs. Borrowing a page from Greg Mortenson's playbook, they're on a reconnaissance mission, looking for the best place to build a school.
Hey, go ahead and drop it forward.
And they found it, right here in the middle of nowhere.
2, 3, 3.
It's an incredible sight, row upon row of school children organized into neat outdoor classes.
1, 2, 2, 3, 3.
Several thousand students diligently counting in English.
10, 10, he.
Even at this age, they know that they want to communicate with the rest of the world. I've never seen anything like this. All these children outside, almost like classes, open air.
It's difficult for them to study when their brains are boiling.
Haji Azim Khan, the education director, says that in his district alone, 33,000 students are now studying outside in the sun. Amir Jan is an Afghan interpreter.
If we will have schools, it's very important. Our kids, they can get education in the future. They will understand who is our enemy, who is our friend.
Ramajan?
Yes, sir.
Tell them that these supplies are from American students, much like themselves.
Doling out pens and pencils, dressed in full combat gear, Major Gary Knorr is trying his best to meet the needs here. He believes the children are the key to winning over their parents and eventually this war.
If we can sway the civilian population and show them that we're here to support their children, then they are going to, in turn, not support the bad guys that are coming in here.
Just days before we arrived, the bad guys had attacked. Tell me what happened.
Encountered the IED, destroyed one of the vehicles. 2 of my men expired on site. The other 2 got care at the hospital, but they didn't make it.
So is this working? Is winning hearts and minds, the battle for hearts and minds, is it working for you?
We've got to carry on the mission for the guys that aren't here anymore. Otherwise, they'll have died in vain.
But they didn't die in vain. And these girls are the living proof. What do the girls think about the Americans being here? What does she think?
We like them because they've come to help us.
You're not scared of them?
No.
But they are afraid of the Taliban, who attacked almost 300 schools last year and severely burned a dozen girls with acid just to keep them from going to class. If your school was threatened and somebody wanted to close it down, what would you do?
We want our school to be built, not destroyed, so we don't want the Taliban.
We asked Mullah Abdullah, the young Taliban fighter whom we met earlier, why they would deny girls an education. He set out his harsh version of Islamic law.
We'll give girls permission to go to school, but only if they are accompanied by a close male relative. And boys and girls are not mixed in one school. But for now, that's not possible.
But these children are not willing to wait. Ehsanullah, can you read this for me?
This is a book.
This is a book, very good. Ehsanullah's dreams are no different from any child's. What would be your dream school?
A building should be built with good books and computers.
Computer. You want to learn computers?
Yes.
All right, all right. Get on the internet?
Yes.
Tell him for being very patient with us.
Major Knorr tells Haji Khan, the education director, that he won't abandon this project.
One thing I've learned from Iraq and Afghanistan, unless you have something to set down in front of the man, you do not promise him.
This brand new school was also built by Major Knorr's unit. His commander, Lieutenant Colonel Kabaski, has come to call class into session. For the first time in their lives, these children will sit at proper desks. The looks on their faces say it all.
I want to ask them what they think of this class. Are they happy about the classroom?
They say, yeah, of course.
But before these Americans pull out, Lieutenant Colonel Kabaski wants the villagers to understand the high price his men have paid.
3 days ago, I lost 4 men who were killed because they were trying to build a school just like this one. All of you here will face a choice between your government, who asked us for help to help build this school, and the enemies of Afghanistan, who offer only destruction.
Up next, is America your friend?
Yes.
Yes. A battle that America may be winning without a fight.
فصل انتظار استراب برای دیدن ستاره افغان با گام‌های بهار.
"21-year-old Naweed Farooq is the front runner in an election, a different kind of election that's captured the attention of young people here. It's the battle to win Afghan Star, this country's version of American Idol. Naweed's out campaigning in what could be called an exercise in democracy, because the Afghan people will elect the winner, casting their votes by mobile phone. But the real contest here is between the vast majority of Afghans who want to embrace a new future and a violent minority who want to drag it back to a medieval past.
No matter what our enemies do, we won't lose hope, because Afghans want to go forward.
They want to go forward against the fundamentalists, like the young Taliban fighter we met earlier named Mullah Abdullah. He disapproves of Afghan Star.
Calling themselves stars is a title they've invented for themselves. That's how they turn something that is sinful into something they think is good.
When the Taliban ruled Afghanistan, they banned all music. Now, they can't even stop the women. Ilahe is this year's top female contender. Ilahe, are you surprised that you can actually sing? You're a woman, and you can sing pop rock here in Afghanistan?
I'm happy things have changed for the better, and that a woman like me can finally perform.
For the Afghan Star finals, police are out in force, along with Kabul's trendiest crowd. Their fashion sense may be locked in a time warp, but they don't sound any different from young people anywhere. Is it important to Afghan young people to be cool?
Yes, sure.
Yeah?
With a cool mind, we are trying to be like America.
Yeah?
Step by step it will be.
Who did you vote for?
I vote Naweed Farooq. For Mehran Gulzar. We are in campaign.
You're competing, yeah. 19-year-old Mehran is the other finalist. In a previous round, he was pitted against Ilahe, who was favored to win. But in an upset, Mehran got more votes. Ilahe was devastated. This isn't American Idol, it's Afghan Star. Nonetheless, it's very similar to a lot of Western reality programs. What do you think this means for Afghanistan in the big picture?
Well, I think it shows that in 4 years you can do a lot.
Jahed Mohseni, an Afghan who grew up in Australia, created Afghan Star.
If you look at our staff, they've never run production, they've never done lighting. And within this very short space of time, they've all been able to pick that up. We have a population that's 60% under 21. They can do things, they have a future. We just need to give them the opportunity.
Backstage, I watched the procession of talent in Jahed's extravaganza. Drummers, dancers, acrobats, child jugglers, a mad fusion of traditional Afghan culture and Western-style pop. The audience and the country loved it. Finally, the moment of truth. Naweed is the new Afghan star. He won votes from all corners of this divided country.
What do you want to say to all the people in Afghanistan who supported you and voted for you?
I want to thank them from the bottom of my heart because I am singing for them all, no matter what their ethnic background.
But the Western fare on Afghanistan's most popular TV station has angered the religious conservatives. So to appease them, station owner Jahed Mohseni came up with another popular program. You could call it Quran Star. These are the 3 finalists. They're judged by how well they sing verses from Islam's holy book. This year's surprising winner is a young woman who takes home the biggest check.
You've got the Quran competition, which is a big hit, and here you have Afghan Star, people dancing, singing in an Islamic state.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't see any contradiction in that. I think that's just an opening to say that we need to look at these things. You need to then go through a discussion with people about what they really want. If you're in a true democracy.
Are you in it for the long haul?
We are in it for the long haul, whether we want to or not.
When we come back, will the U.S. win over the long haul? I ask America's top military commander.
For every Afghan civilian we kill, we back up.
Cairo, Egypt, June 2009.
If we choose to be bound by the past, we will never move forward.
When President Obama spoke to the Muslim world, it was young people like these whom I met in Afghanistan that he was trying to reach.
And I want to particularly say this to young people of every faith, in every country. You, more than anyone, have the ability to reimagine the world.
You know the new American president?
Yeah, we have heard about his name.
Barack Obama.
Barack Obama, yeah.
He said he wants a new relationship with the Muslim world, with the Islamic world. What do you think of that?
I think it's good.
This relationship should be forever. We want also that Afghanistan would be in higher position like other countries, like America.
Do you think Afghanistan has a good future?
Yeah, I know, because America is helping.
Mefar's positive impression of the United States was shared by an overwhelming 84% of the people here. That was 4 years ago. Now it's dropped nearly in half.
One major reason?
The alarming rise in civilian deaths as the United States confronts the Taliban.
This is where I found her body. Yesterday, I buried a leg.
This man lost 10 members of his immediate family when an American bomb fell in the middle of his home. U.S. airstrikes aimed at Taliban fighters leveled his village. It's the single worst civilian casualty case of the war so far. The U.S. can pay up to $2,000 for each person killed. But the money seems inadequate in the face of such grief.
If the foreign forces gave me the whole world, it wouldn't replace my son.
Last year, 828 people were killed by American or pro-government forces. The mounting anger over the death toll has reached the Pentagon, where I spoke to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral Mike Mullen.
People are very angry about the aerial bombardments that you say gets the militants, they say kills their civilians.
Yeah, I accept that. For every Afghan civilian we kill, we back up. We can't move forward if we keep doing that.
In June, the Pentagon announced major restrictions on airstrikes. Admiral Mullen believes that, along with the push to build schools and rebuild damaged towns, can turn the war around.
You've been quoted that we're not winning in Afghanistan. Do you still believe that?
Yes.
Can you win?
Yes. I said we are not winning there, but we can. And I really believe that we can win this.
America, Afghanistan, the Arab world, either all of us rise together or all of us fall together.
White House advisor Eboo Patel says that in this fight, poverty may be an even greater obstacle than the Taliban.
I think we have to recognize that many of these young Muslims around the world are facing the absolute harshest situations imaginable. To wake up hungry and to not know where your next meal is coming from, we have to help do something about that.
When we come back, a boy finds a little happiness in a city where it's hard to come by. It's rush hour, and 13-year-old Anwar darts to work through downtown traffic in Kabul. Today, he might earn $1, waving incense over drivers to smoke out the evil eye. When it's not raining, Anwar shines shoes.
This brush is for polish, this one for coloring, this one for red shoe polish, this one for black, and this one to get the dust off.
With a father too ill to work, Anwar is his family's sole supporter. He never has any time for fun, but today he's about to have some. This is Skateistan, a program that lets children just be children and gives them a break from their bleak lives. It's the brainchild of a young Australian named Oliver Perkovich.
All of the kids that are on the street virtually have no time for any sort of recreation whatsoever because they're working the whole time from a really early age. Have you skated before? No. You've never skateboarded before? You're picking up very fast. So jump on and do tic-tac, tic-tac.
Anwar's a quick study. Imagine what he might have done at school if he hadn't had to drop out to help feed his family.
From the bottom of my heart, I'd like to go back to school. Is there anything better? I want a skill, and I want to learn how to read.
They're looking for a new identity. They don't particularly see the same things the way that their parents do. They're not as biased towards foreigners or towards foreign influences. They want new opportunities for themselves, and the way to reach them is through recreation, is through sport, is through music, things that we all have in common.
Sharing what we all have in common with young Muslims here might be the best way of winning them over, according to White House advisor Eboo Patel.
There is a perception amongst Muslims and young Muslims out there that America sees them as the enemy, as a pest, as terrorists or potential terrorists.
Right. I think the first thing is to say, we do not see you as the enemy. I think the second thing is to say, we have common goals. And a common goal is to create a world where people have opportunity to grow, to prosper.
Yet, nearly everywhere we turned in Afghanistan, these children are on the ropes because of poverty. Anwar clings to the dream of an education. So far, his only outlet is a skateboard, but it is a small opening to a larger world.
I thought it was just play, but then my friend said to come and play and you will learn.
It's the first day of school for Nassim, the young boy we met at the beginning of our journey. He's finally getting his chance at a future. His uncle has agreed to take care of him and not to force him to go to work, as long as Nassim promises to be good. Both have signed a contract.
I promised my uncle that every morning I'll go to school, do all my assignments, and have a good future.
A good future. It doesn't seem like too much for a child to ask. A future that Greg Mortenson, the American who's helped educate so many Afghans, still believes is possible.
Perhaps this is a moment of darkness in this country's history, but I think what education does is it gives people hope. And there's a Persian proverb that says, when it is dark, you can see the stars. And those stars, I think, are education.